Hello and welcome to Hops and Bros. I'm Nathan from Nathandoesbeer and from the BAOS podcast blog. This is part 4 of the Hops and Bros deep dive on the Flanders Red style. And today the boys are going to be talking about the acidic qualities of beer.
For an open window on a crappy world, Max and Chris from Ups and Brews. Ups and Brews. Welcome to Ups and Brews.
But before we dive into this special video, I want to give a nice big thanks to our partners at brewhq.ca. If you haven't heard about them yet, they are the online resource for your own brew needs. Whether you want to upgrade your setup or buy fresh new ingredients for your new recipe, they are the website to go at. They have a great selection of fantastic homebrew equipment, but also hops, malts, yeast, whatever you need to have success in your new passion, or maybe you're just want to upgrade or you want to get started. They are the right place to do it. And the perfect way to do it is by using the code BROS to get a nice 10% off on your first purchase. Yes, 10% off. It's just a great way to get you started, a nice little rebate, and also a perfect way to support the channel at the same time, because yes, it does help us fulfill our passion of making beer videos. Thanks a lot, BrewHQ.
All right, so this week we're keeping on with our deep dive subject, but this time looking at acidity. So at the actual mouthfeel of acidity, taking under account all that we've been talking for the last few weeks. So barrel bacteria, so different bacteria that are going to affect mouthfeel, are going to affect the acidity, but also the fact that Flanders Red tend to have more of an acetic acid and not as much more of that lactic kind of citric acid. So we're looking at the two differences about vinegar and more of a fruity acidity in this case. And just a little heads up, it's all opinion. You know, there's no right answer. Some people love Flanders Red because it has that vinegar flavor, as other people hate it, you know, and some people just like the citric more acidity, you know, and the ones that are a little fruitier. Other people don't. So, again, opinion. You might have a different opinion. You might not like acidity as well in your beer, so just take that into account, you know? And this week, to start us off, we have our good friend Nathan. All of his links are going to be down there. Go check out his Instagram. Go check out his stuff. He's a good friend of the channel, and we want to know his opinion to start us off.
Which is an interesting topic specific to Flanders Red, because it's one that can sometimes come off vinegary and even a bit balsamic, which is significantly different from a lot of other styles, which can come off more citric, like lemon or orange or grapefruit sometimes. When it comes to other Flanders Reds, you've heard the guys talk about Rouge de Mekinac from Anafu, and last week Chris mentioned Small Pony Barrel Works, which is an amazing barrel-aged sour brewery here in Ottawa. And they've got a beer out right now called The Witching Hour, which is a Flanders Red inspired beer aged in oak barrels with Pinot Noir pomace. I just had it a couple of weeks ago. It's really good if you're looking for one to try right now. So I'll be interested to see what the guys have to say about the acidic qualities in Flanders Reds, so I'll turn it over to Chris and Max.
All right, so last week we took a look at barrel bacteria, and even before that we took a look at lactobacillus in an old video. So if you guys want to go check it out for sure. And that is the basis of the flavor of acidity that you're going to find in beers, for sour beers. In the case of a Flanders Red, it's Acetobacter that is the bacteria that will give acidity to that beer, that will give it that sour feel. Acetobacter is very different than lactobacillus and pediococcus that give that lactic acidity, in the sense that with Acetobacter, you have more of that vinegar. So it's a fuller kind of acidity. I find that with Acetobacter, with that vinegar acidity, it kind of tends to go well or better with beers that have a little more of that caramel malt. So more of a red beer base or a brown beer base, like in the case of the Oud Bruin or the Flanders Red. It kind of ties in everything a little better together. It adds a lot of complexity, but also keeps the full body nature of that beer. As the lactic acid, the lactobacillus and pediococcus, they tend to do a lot better with a fruity beer because the fruit already has those notes of acidity in there. When you're brewing a beer, you kind of want to borrow from existent flavor profiles. That's how you create your beer. Historically, beer was all about balance, so you didn't necessarily have access to, giving a bunch of acidity or a bunch of bitterness or a bunch of sweetness in a beer. You would just try to balance it out. Now, with the kind of modern era of beer brewing, I'd say since about 2012, even maybe a little later than that, 2018 really pushed the envelope for that. You have more of those imbalanced beers. You have IPAs that are all about the fruit character of the hops, or IPAs that are all about the bitterness of the hop with no balance, no subtlety. You don't have any caramel malt there to balance it out. You also have those pastry stouts that are kind of the opposite. They're all about the sweetness, no bitterness, which again, weird concept on paper shouldn't work in the sense that beer should be balanced, but it does work. And in the case of sour beers, people are definitely pushing the envelope of what is sour and what should sour feel like. You got to remember that sour beers are brewed with a bacteria. They're also brewed with yeast, but what gives it that sour note is that bacteria. It's not quite as well controlled as yeast. Therefore, you have kind of offs. I have weird beers that maybe go a little too far in that lactobacillus, or might be going a little too far in the acidobacter. And with acidobacter, it just becomes vinegar. I personally like Flanders Reds. I like that vinegar feel. I like when it's a little more subtle, maybe. I still find it very refreshing, but again, it has more of a full body to it. And I don't like to add seasons to beers. I'm a big fan of Guinness, and I drink Guinness year-round, whether it's summer, 30 degrees Celsius outside, or whether it's winter and it's minus 30. I'm still going to enjoy it. But when it comes to these more acidobacter-driven beers, those more vinegar beers, and because they're a little fuller, I do find they're a little more of a cold weather beer. And the kind of refreshing, more citric, more more lactic base acidity tends to be a little better in the summer. It's more like having a Radler or even having a lemonade, So you have more of that refreshing aspect to it. Again, I like both. Both kind of have their own place. But Chris, what do you think of the different acidities? Is there something better? Do you see something that is very different? What's your opinion on this?
Yes, Max and Nathan, acidity perception is, yes, it's prone to every single different human that's drinking beers, but on my personal side, I do prefer the vinegar perception of things. Why? Because I do think that there's a little bit more complexity behind a vinegar acidity compared to a citric acidity. Why? Often I do find that it's a little bit softer and you get a little bit more sweetness out of it instead of just tartness that reminds you of sour candies, which, yeah, I've never been really a fan of sour candies. So for me, going with a more vinegar feel does bring out more red berries, a little bit of fruitiness that's not closer to citrus but closer to red fruits. In my opinion, I do prefer that. But again, I do think that it builds a lot more complexity into a beer like Flanders Red because yes, it's red, it's darker, you get a little bit more sweetness out of the caramel malts in there, which creates a nice mouthfeel. And adding that little acidity that comes from the vinegar, I do think that it works well. And another brewery that I do enjoy, which is Half Hour on Earth, always plays with kind of like a perfect middle level of citric acidity and vinegar acidity, which adds so much complexity to the beer that it makes it a lot more enjoyable to drink because you get different layers as you get through the beer as it warms up at the same time. It's fantastic to discover new flavors, and I'm a big fan of food in general too, so vinegar, there's so much to discover out there. Balsamic vinegars, you can try different rice vinegars, all that. But again, in the beer, I do think it's closer to balsamic vinegar, and it has that red fruit flavor. I'm a big fan of that. So you can debate on it whether you like it or not, but in Flanders Red, I do think that this is where acidity or tartness in beer shines a lot. When you get them in kettle sours, usually it's a more citric forward acidity. Yes, it's punchy, it's bright, it's refreshing, it's great for summertime, but sometimes it's closer to that boundary where it's so much like candy that it's not enjoyable anymore. It's too tart, you get too much acid in there and it's not fun to drink. I prefer a more subtle layers that just makes it nice, easy, enjoyable, but also gets you into a bit more complexity as you get through your bottle. And for you, what's your favorite acidity out there on the palate perception? Do you prefer a beer that's a bit more citric forward or something that's closer to vinegar type of acidity? And in what beer do you enjoy them? Is it in a kettle sour or in a Flanders Red? Would like to know, and would like to know also what you want to see in the upcoming months on Ups and Bros, because we already have a fantastic month of July or next series ready to go. We need to record it, but still we have all the ideas nailed down. But what subject do you want us to fulfill for a whole month, for a whole series? Let us know down there in the comments, because this is how we can go forward and get you guys the content that you deserve, but also that you enjoy that much. Hopefully you enjoy watching this discussion, this video. I know it looks weird having different scenarios, different setups, because we're not kind of like in the same locations right now and still affected by the whole COVID-19 situation. So thanks a lot for the whole support. Glad you enjoyed this video, and hopefully we'll see you guys in the next one, which is coming out next week. Cheers.